At this time, I'll call the meeting of the Marshall City Council to order with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to welcome everyone here this evening. We do have an agenda before us. Are there any changes to that agenda? If not, we'll operate under that agenda. First item then would be to consider the approval of the minutes from the regular meeting that was held and the work session that was held on October 8th. The council does have the minutes of both of those meetings. Are there any corrections to note? If not, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Motion by C, seconded by John to approve the minutes as they have been presented. We'll move to a vote. We'll close the voting. And the motion does pass. Agenda item number 2 is a public hearing. This is a public hearing on the ordinance amending Chapter 74, Article 7, Division 3-2, which is a permit for Class 2 all-terrain vehicles and utility task vehicles, which also means golf carts. So that we will have the public hearing on this to provide the opportunity for public input. Following the conclusion of the public hearing, then we'll consider the ordinance that would allow this. So at this time, Stephen, are you going to conduct a public hearing? Or I'll call on Stephen Anderson, City Clerk, to conduct this public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you had mentioned, that this public hearing is to amend Chapter 74 of the City Code of Ordinances that currently allows all-terrain vehicles and utility task vehicles to operate on public streets and roadways with a yearly permit. The amendment would allow golf carts to also operate on those same streets and roadways with the caveats of they would be required to have a slow-moving emblem, and they would be restricted to streets with a speed limit of 30 miles per hour or less. On the map there, that would be all of the streets that are colored. The red streets are Minnesota highways. The largest and main ones would be Country Club Drive, County Road 7, Channel Parkway, and then North 7th Street going out to ADM. United Community Action did send a letter that's included in the packet in opposition. And then previously, the Legislative and Ordinance Committee did meet, and we had looked at various other cities across the state, mostly looking at ones that are around the same size as Marshall. Kind of was all over the place. Some do allow golf carts, some didn't. In our $13,000 to $14,000 our population range, it was pretty consistently no across the board. Marshall was actually the only city in our range that allowed UTVs. The others in our 13 to 14,000 didn't allow that either.
Okay. Thank you, Stephen. City Attorney Pam Whitmore is online. Pam, do you have anything you want to add before we get into the public comment?
No, I will, I guess, yes, if I'm continuing. So just something brief, just the revisions, there were inclusions of different statutory requirements that have to be incorporated into the golf cart for it to operate. And it has limited areas that it can operate in. So I just would note that for the public hearing.
Okay. With that, I will open it up for any public comment as part of this public hearing from anyone here in the audience or on the council. Anyone wish to speak? And if you are here to speak and are a member of the audience, I'll ask you to come up and use the microphone. Yes, please.
Hello, Council. My name is Sarah Rudshey. I'm a resident of Marshall. Lived here my entire life, except for a short time away at school. I have real concerns about this particular ordinance, particularly just given the safety issues. As many of you know, I'm a local lawyer, and I just see this being hugely problematic to have vehicles that aren't supposed to be road ready on our highways, on our side streets. We already have issues with traffic with too much distracted driving, and to put golf carts on our main roads, particularly during times in the morning, school time drop-offs, during the evening hours, the amount of semi-traffic through town. I just see this as being a huge no for the community. So I would just request, I would speak in opposition to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Anyone else wish to speak at this time? Any comments from the council?
Mr. Mayor,
Craig?
I am not in favor of this. And I understand there's some places where it'd be convenient, especially for the people that engage at the country club and, would actually want to utilize not having to trailer their golf cart to go from their house to the country club and back. And this is certainly a lot more than that. And one of the concerns I have is golf carts operate at a slower speed than UTVs, and a golf cart as a golf cart, because of the low speed, I think for a lot of families in sheltered areas, consider them safe for the younger youth to drive. And so like you go to the campgrounds in the summertime, and especially the ones where people have seasonal rentals, all of them have golf carts. And then it's the golf cart parade all weekend long, and it's young kids cruising around, and at least once a weekend, you'll see somebody get pitched off the golf cart. And I know we require seat belts and all the rest of that, but I just think we're going to have creep. We're opening the door to mixing non-compatible uses. I agree with Ms. Ranchi that, I've driven a semi for 45, almost 50 years, and nothing scares me more than to have something like that mixed in with traffic. Drivers that are probably less experienced are certainly not always paying attention to what's going on around them. And nothing wins against a semi, but I would hate to have my life ruined by getting into an incident and me being the cause of somebody's demise when they're on a vehicle that really isn't mated to be where it is. And I just have serious concerns about this, and I just cannot support it.
Other comments, either from the council or from members of the audience? We're still in the public hearing.
I'd speak. I appreciate that everything that Councilmember Schaefer has said and that Ms. Runchi said, but the main roads aren't the issue. They're already not allowed on main roads by state statute. They would only be in residential areas, and you cross the main road. So if there's a semi going down my road, yeah, that's an issue.
But they'd still be crossing. I mean,
There's no question. They'd be crossing, and then for the children to be driving them, it's already illegal. They have to have a license.
Right.
And so that becomes a parental thing. I appreciate it. I think safety is an important thing, but.
I am also in opposition because, like Craig said, semi trucks are coming, and if somebody's trying to cross with a golf cart, I used to be a driver's ed instructor, and I had a student that was crossing the highway, and they were not going very fast. They were probably going the speed of a golf cart, and luckily we were in a car, we can go faster, but there was a semi truck coming. And if you had somebody that was in a golf cart, they could not go faster. That is the fastest they could go. And as we know, Craig said, a truck cannot just stop at the drop of a dime. It's going to take time to stop. And even though, it's illegal for kids to ride it, I mean, where do we see that kids are not supposed to do things, they do it anyways, right? We see those scooters, they're supposed to be 18, but they're on those anyways. I mean, there was an incident with one of the United community transit buses. So even though we say there's no kids on it, there's going to be kids on it, because I think people get that sense of safety because golf carts don't go so fast that they feel safe just putting their kids on it. And it's going to be really difficult to enforce, because by the time I call the cops on somebody, they're already gone. And so the cop comes, and where's the golf cart? It's nowhere to be seen. So I think, safety is a huge, huge reason here why we shouldn't pass it. And all just for the reason so that you could have another transportation. That is not enough reason to pass this. So I oppose it. Thank you.
Thank you, C. Other input from the council or members of the audience?
Mr. Mayor, just one kind of to add a little bit, if I may. There are a number of streets in town where they're 30 miles an hour and they're residential, but there's still a lot of semi-traffic. I live on Marshall Street, and it's not at all unusual. First of all, Marshall Street is one of our primary detours if we're having something going on Main Street. But even without being detoured, there's at least 5, if not 10 semis a day, or gravel trucks or other things going out to go onto North 7th Street from downtown rather than going down Main Street. They'll go down Marshall Street And it's every day, and it's weekends, whatever. There's at least 3 or 4, and a lot of days there's 5 to 10 semis that go up and down. And there's a number of other streets in town that are the same way. And I just have a concern. I just think it's a very dangerous mix of vehicles that there's just too much difference, and they're really not intended. And I know you can get some high-end ones that come all trimmed up, and they're 4-seaters and 6-seaters, and they have seat belts, and they have lights, and they have mirrors, and they may even go 25 or 30 miles an hour, but it's still a golf cart chassis, and it's just not right to me. I think it's the wrong mix of vehicles.
Other input?
I tend to agree with the opposition. I tried to think about, because I understand the appeal and why you would want to, but just out on walks in my neighborhood alone, we have curvy roads. The cars come whipping around those curves, and I can jump up on the grass, but if they come up on a golf cart that isn't going fast enough, you're going to have trouble. I think about on the way to school and the long lines of cars, and if a golf cart's holding up people too, it's hard. It's not, people will get upset. There's going to be issues other than just safety.
Is there any other input? If not, is there a motion to close this public hearing?
So move.
By Craig, seconded by C to close the public hearing. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. We'll close the public hearing, or we'll close the voting.
That was the public hearing. I voted the wrong thing. So did
We're still closed.
I.
Still passed.
You're having a tough
I'm
day.
having a tough day.
So we'll now consider the ordinance. The public hearing is closed.
Thanks, John.
Consider the ordinance. Any questions about the ordinance as it has been proposed?
So the ordinance is to adopt it.
The ordinance as proposed is to adopt. I would entertain a motion pertaining to the ordinance.
So moved.
Is there a second to that motion? I need to ask this 2 more times. Is there a second to that motion? Is there a second? If not, that motion dies for lack of a second. I would now entertain a motion to not adopt the ordinance as was presented at the public hearing.
I so move.
Motion by Craig, seconded by C. Discussion? If there's no discussion, we'll move to a vote. Stephen, do we do this by voice vote? Okay. We'll move to a vote.
Now, a yay is to deny.
Correct.
Thank you.
Everyone understands? Close the voting. And the motion does pass. The ordinance is not adopted. So thank you. Good discussion. We'll move to the next agenda item. Next agenda item then would be to consider the award of proposal for the pickup of refuse at various city locations. Sharon, do you have this one?
This would be Stephen as well.
Stephen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A request for proposals was sent in September for the 4 licensed refuse haulers that we have in the city of Marshall. Quotes were received last Thursday for the removal of the garbage and trash from numerous locations around the city. Proposals were received from 2 companies, and 2 of the other ones did not submit a quote. The low bid, or the low quote, was received from Sweetman Sanitation of Echo in the amount of $25,980. And the bid, or the proposal is shown on screen.
Okay. Thank you, Stephen. Council have
Mr.
questions?
Mr. Mayor, may I add something?
Go ahead, City Attorney Whitmore.
Thank you. I just wanted to just clarify that even though this is under a section of the agenda that's titled Award of Bids, there was not the competitive bid process followed in this because it's not the type of agreement. First of all, it's not the type of agreement that's subject to competitive bid law. And second, it's also below any type of threshold that would be requiring it, even if it was. So I just wanted to note that for the council so it didn't get confusing.
Okay, thank you, Pam. questions for Stephen or questions that the council has that they want to bring up?
So this is a bid for garbage pickup for the city,
Right,
not residential?
right. It's for city garbage, refuse, or recycling.
Okay.
And just to follow up a little bit more on city attorney, being that it's not a competitive bid process under the Minnesota statutes, it may allow some thought process or discussion about, do we want to not accept these quotes and negotiate with one particular provider or another? And Pam, correct me on that. But I think it gives us a little more latitude in that arena if the council so desires.
Yeah, so if the council chose to follow a different process for negotiating this, they're able to do that under their power. Their power is both under the charter and under the statute. Since it's not subject to the competitive bid law, it can do direct negotiations with keeping a couple of the quotes after direct negotiation on file.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Other input?
Sharon, do you feel confident that if you negotiate with this other one, that they would go down in their price or
Yes, I do.
comparable to Sweetman's?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Other questions? Other input?
Yeah, I don't have a question. A comment that I have is it's always been my feeling, my belief that while I appreciate all the interest in doing the business in Marshall, and I appreciate Sweetman taking the time to put in the quote, I like to buy our services when all things are considered equal. I like to buy them from within the community. I like to support our businesses. And I appreciate the fact that the local vendor is willing to negotiate the price and to be competitive. And that would be my wishes, is to do that.
Other input?
I would make that a motion.
You want to restate your motion?
My motion is that we direct staff to negotiate with Southwest Sanitation on the services that we were asked to have quoted and to come up with a satisfactory price schedule for the services. And I would also like to add that we maybe make that agreement with some considerations for I'd like to make it for more than 2 years if we could. There could be some conditions in there with tipping rates changing, maybe would be some variable, but other than that, and maybe fuel. I don't know if the bids have fuel surcharges on them, the things that tend to be fluid, but, I think we go through this every couple of years, and I don't know if that's a big challenge or not.
So that's a motion. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Seconded by C. The motion was made by Craig. Now, discussion on the motion.
How much do we currently pay right now? Do you know?
Stephen?
We currently pay the $30,360 for Southwest Sanitation.
We do have a couple examples where we have a track record of doing something similar. For example, our farmland leases, we had the lease where we allowed the current renter to match what the what another bid
Competitive
was,
bid,
a
yes.
competitive bid. So the justification here would be, it's the current vendor, the current supplier of the service, and by maintaining that with the competitive price, there's less disruption in the service.
Right.
Other discussion on that motion?
Well, and I also believe, Mr. Mayor, if I can, I don't think there's been any concerns, questions, or problems with the current vendor either. So it's not like we were trying to solve a problem by going for quotes that we needed to make a change.
Mr. Mayor, and just to clarify, and again, city attorney, correct, but we would bring back the negotiated contract to council for approval unless the motion would state something otherwise. But I feel that would be
Well,
what
that's
we would be
consistent.
required to do,
That'd be
correct?
consistent, yes.
Correct.
Okay, other discussion on the motion?
So basically, if they come back with a number higher than 25,980, we could decline it and go with the Sweetman bid?
It would still be a decision of the council when it comes back.
It would be an option.
Correct.
Other discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. We'll close the voting.
She's always sleeping. We're good.
You vote.
Yep.
The motion does pass. We'll move then to the consent agenda. We'll bring the items up on the screen that are on the consent agenda. And
I know, sorry.
And they include consider authorization to declare vehicles as surplus property. Consider the approval of the lawful gambling permit for the Shades of the Past. The introduction of the ordinance for the structures in residential districts, introduction of the ordinance for the amendment for the low-density district, introduction of the ordinance for the amendment to Chapter 86, the prohibited use, consider the approval of the partial release of development contract for the modification and declaration of restrictions for Stone Metal, and finally consider the approval of the bills and the project payments. Is there any item on the consent agenda any member of the council wants removed for separate discussion?
I move approval of the consent agenda.
Second that.
Motion by Craig, seconded by Amanda. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting. And the motion does pass. Agenda item number 11, the City of Marshall and Marshall Municipal Utilities Partnership Agreement. Our joint committee consisting of representatives of the Marshall Municipal Utilities Commission and then liaison from our city council, John Elkhorn, and myself, along with our city staff, met recently and kind of hashed through all of the components of what's being proposed that will be presented by Mr. Dave Shelkoff, the General Manager of Marshall Municipal Utilities. Welcome, Dave.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council members, thank you very much for your time this evening. As you know, this is an excellent document that keeps the city and MMU working together in a very positive manner, gives us direction on how we help each other, specifically on certain funding measures and certain operations of the city and MMU. So with that, you'll see today that basically the cover letter of this particular agreement is not changed a bunch. It's very few changes that we're proposing this year. But I do want to go through the first couple of pages with you to give you make you familiar again of how we come to these numbers and how MMU can come alongside the city and support the city financially through various methods. So if you can go to page 63. There we go. So this is payment in lieu of taxes or pilot calculations. This is a formula that was created back in 2020 when we presented this to the city council for approval, and also the utility commission for that matter. In this, you will see a calculation over an average of 10 years of energy usage. And over that 10 years, the average is determined. And from that number, the kilowatt hour electric sales is the basis with which the pilot calculation is made. And you'll see that over the years, the last 3 years specifically has gone down, our sales have gone down overall. So that means that the amount that is given to the city would also reflect that reduction. So one of the things that we talked about in our committee was, when do we get to take a look at that? City is concerned about that number going down, and I totally agree with that. We need to take a look at that. Pilot means payment in lieu of taxes. When was the last time we looked at the worth of our property, MMU property, and see how, if it was a privately owned property, how much taxes would be paid on that? So we want to make sure we're truing that up. And so this year, the financial wizards of both MMU and the city will get together and start comparing those numbers, looking at that and seeing if the pilot is true to what the intent is, that it's payment in lieu of taxes. So we'll take a look at that and then probably also look at a baseline number. So it won't go below a certain amount. So the city then can feel assured that that number will never change and never go below that. So you can start managing that a little bit easier than having it go down every year. Now remember, this payment goes to the EDA of the city, and it can be used by the city any way they want to. The only caveat that we have in this money, which I think you will all agree, it has to be paid out for inside the city limits. So it has to be inside the city limits for any kind of economic development. Makes sense, right? The citizens of this community through the electrical rate are paying it, so it makes sense. Any questions about payment in lieu of taxes?
I think, Dave, maybe we should, provide a little more explanation about why electrical sales have gone down over the past 3 years,
Fair
which really, in one sense, is a good thing because there's been a lot of investment in private users and commercial users in becoming more efficient, whether it's
Yes.
as simple as changing out light bulbs or on a larger scale with some
Yeah.
of our commercial businesses and industries that are becoming much more efficient on their electrical consumption.
That's a great, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will endeavor to give you some background here. On this particular page here, I know it's a little bit difficult for you, but right here you'll see that industrial customers, that's one customer of MMU. And if you, oh, perfect, thanks, man. You'll see that customer itself, as far as kilowatt hour sales, is about 60% of our total sales, 55, 60%. And that is ADM. So if ADM's production or electrical usage goes down significantly, so does our kilowatt hour sales significantly. If it has over 55% of our total sales, it makes sense. And so you'll take a look here and you'll see that ADM's load has gone down significantly. So that's one reason why you're seeing an overall sales reduction. The other is what you're saying, Mr. Mayor, and that is we have a very, very active and intense energy efficiency program. We provide rebates for lighting. I just went into our church, replaced all of our overhead lighting with LED bulbs, and it paid for itself, paid for every bulb that we purchased. It's a very good program, so if you are not familiar with it, the citizens of Marshall every one of them can take advantage of that program through MMU. Just call our offices and we can give you some information on that. But that has been very, very successful. Changing out incandescent bulbs, and even some of, if you remember, 10, 15 years ago, compact fluorescent bulbs were all the rave until, I forget what the other lighting is. Anyway, it doesn't matter. LEDs, thank you very much. I appreciate that pulling out there and give me a little hand.
I'm there with you, Dave.
Thanks a lot, Craig. So LEDs are about a little more efficient than compact fluorescents, but you remember when they first came out, they were very, very expensive. So compact fluorescent bulbs were very inexpensive. People use that, and that's how they reduce their energy consumption. And so now LEDs are very, very inexpensive compared to the costs of an incandescent bulb. So that is the other side of this coin. If you take a look at it, we've been very successful in reducing overall usage for our customers, which is good for them, but overall our kilowatt hour sales go down.
And just to clarify, ADM has maintained their level of production, but they've been able to reduce their electrical consumption through efficiency in the plant.
Yep, that's partially why they're reducing that. They also are starting up a new line. If you are familiar with ADM. And with that, we might see an additional usage of electricity through that new line. And they're working through some issues as we are as well. This by no means minimizes the importance of ADM to our overall cost and our overall sales. They help everyone in our community and with our energy costs because of how they use their electrical energy. Very important partner in our community. Any other questions about that? But that's the reason why. Now, we do have some prospective increases in sales. Solugen is one of them. When they come here and they come online, we'll be actually increasing our kilowatt hour sales quite substantially. And so that will turn this trend around as well. So any kind of new apartments, everything like that will increase our kilowatt hour sales and it'll help us in the future. So it's kind of an accumulative effect. And we're looking to turn that around though. As you can see, it's now, I think we've kind of bottomed out, and in 2021 it was 516 million kilowatt hours, and 2023 is 517. So I think we've kind of hit the bottom level here.
Okay. Anything else you want to go through?
Sure, I do. If we go to the next page, it breaks down these numbers. It talks about the PILOS and the EDA support numbers. You'll see those numbers here. They're all calculated from what we had just discussed before. And that comes to that top number there, that pilot payments, $949,811. We also work with the city on streetlight costs of $277,000. And in the packet itself, there is a spreadsheet that comes from our rate case. So every 3 years, MMU does a rate study, and we have a cost of service rate. So these individual rates that we have, residential, commercial, industrial, they all have a cost of service. And we calculate that into the rate, and that becomes part of everybody's cost. We try and make it as fair as we can to the entire community. You know, cost causer's the cost payer. We try and make sure that this is a cost of service rate. And so when we take a look at that, every 3 years, we take a look at our street lights. Every year we look at fire protection. Every year we look at wastewater billing at cost allocations and surface water billing cost allocations. All of these things, we bring value back to the city. Maybe not giving you dollars, but we give it in service in kind. What do we call that? The spirit of cooperation? There we go. And so that total comes to $1,608,757 a year. So if we take a look at that, we want to make sure that you understand where this dollars come from and where MMU comes alongside the city and helps. Any questions about that? And I do have in your packet, there are additional information if you are wondering, where do you get that number for streetlights? It's completely laid out in the spreadsheet in your packet. Any other questions? If not, can we run to 82, page 82? So we do have a change here, a very, very small one, but we wanted to put it in nonetheless. Sharon helped us with this to define what this, if you remember, on Commerce Park, we have a grant for Commerce Park, a $2 million grant from the state. With that grant came some strings on how we can use that land. And of course, MMU wants a little piece of that land to future location of our water treatment plant. We'd like to put it there. It's 40 years out, but we wanted to think ahead, right? And so we were working with the city on doing that, but finding out that the grant has some strings attached to it, but the grant has also a sunset to those strings. And we didn't have that specifically in the agreement, so we asked and got some information, and Sharon provided for us. And what you see here is just basically a reference to a state statute that gives us the information we need, should we need it in the future. We didn't have that in the agreement. We thought it would be important for us to be reminded of that every year. And it looks like it's in 2027, 28 that the strings will drop off of that grant. So if we can go to 83 then, next page. Any questions about that before I go on? Okay, so now here's the real change, I believe, in from last year's to this year's or next year's agreement between the city and MMU. And that is our MMU capital funding plan. We haven't come to the city and asked for bonding for a long time. We've been able to do it all internally, the work that we've been doing. But as you know, we have right now, the electrical utility has a large, what we call turbine generator. It sits right by the office there. And that turbine now is 55 years old. They typically last 40 to 45 years, and it's a testament to the people that work at MMU. We've been able to keep this thing running for 55 years now, and according to the experts, it could be 10, 15 years more, which is really, really good. But we need to start looking at replacing that. So one of our power suppliers, Missouri River Energy Services, has entered into an agreement with MMU to pay us reserve capacity credits or dollars for our generation here. And we're currently getting paid that reserve capacity money for the existing generator. But what are we going to do when and if this generator ever breaks down? So we're looking to replace that. And so our energy partner at Missouri River Energy Services is also giving us some help in that endeavor, upfront monies to help us with that. So with that, you start looking at the money that we're getting on a monthly basis for the capacity of the new generation. We start looking at this upfront monies that they're giving us, and now we start looking at we can afford to replace that old generator with brand new generation. And we can do it without any inflationary pressures on the rate. This is an $18 million project. It's really quite great. The relationship we have and the benefits we have with being a member of Missouri River Energy Services creates great value for our customers here in Marshall. So an $18 million project, basically self-funded. Very cool. We're looking forward to seeing that going forward. So what we need to do though is we need to find, we don't have that kind of money in the bank. So we got a bond for that. So we're going to be asking next year for $10.7 million. $2.5 million of that is going to be water related because we have to pay for the College Drive DOT project. On the water side, it's about $2.5 million. And on the electrical side, we're going to need somewhere around $7.5 million next year. Now, all of these numbers are fluid. When I say $10.7 million in bonding, it could be as low as $7 million, could be as high as $10.7 million. We didn't want to, when we presented this to both the committee and now to you this evening, we wanted to make sure that we didn't surprise you. So 10.7 is going to be the highest we're going to be asking for. But depending on engineering and when we can get the work done and when the money has to be spent, it might go down a little bit next year. But 10.7 is what we're asking for. Now, the next year, in 2026, we'll be asking for an additional $9 million to help pay for the generators themselves. So that's our plan. Any questions about that?
Dave, just a clarification that now, I know we had talked, what, a year and a half, 2 years ago, we talked first about the generation.
Yes, sir.
So I think we were talking about 8. Was it 8 stations that you were looking at putting in?
Oh, yes. We were looking at, I think at that time, we were looking at 2 megawatt units and we were probably looking at 6. Now we have 3 megawatt units, we're looking at 4.
Okay.
4 individual generators. We like that idea too, because if one breaks, you don't lose all of your generation, right? Now, if something goes wrong with this generator we currently have, it's about a 15 megawatt generator, the whole thing's gone. Mm-hmm. So we were looking at breaking that up so at least we can keep some lights on for our customers.
And these are reciprocating units?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Diesel run. We're looking right now at internal storage of the fuel as well, to keep it warmer, obviously, in the winter months here. We're also in the design stage and decision stage of construction out. And this will be out at our southwest substation, right by the water treatment plant, is where we're going to put this generation.
All of them will be at the same site?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All four will be in one place. Good questions. And so that's really the last major change in our partnership agreement, is to keep you up to speed on what we need for financing for next year. Any other questions about the agreement itself?
Well, as the council knows, there's many other agreements that we have, but those have not changed.
That's correct.
So you've highlighted the ones that have changed.
Right. And if I can go to the last page of that report, I added just one little thing. I wanted to give some more information to this city council and to the customers watching, our citizens watching on TV and listening to the radio. This is something we do every year on our annual audit. I bring this and present this to not only the Utility Commission, but also to the city of Marshall and to the city council. And this is an interesting tell. So right now, everybody understands that right now, MMU, Marshall Municipal Utilities, is a municipal utilities owned by the city, by the people we serve. It's a great way to provide energy. And so this particular slide talks about if you were served by an investor-owned utility, what would the cost of that electricity be? And you'll see these are 2022 numbers. Every year we update that, but here's the most recent ones that we had. And if you read the chart, the first one is 2022 average rate in Minnesota City served by investor-owned utilities. You'll see that residential, this is in 2022 now. Residential is 15.2 cents per kilowatt hour. Our average rate here at MMU is 9.3. And you can see the difference in the savings to our citizens here in Marshall. Kilowatt hour used, and then an indirect value of $3,864 just for the residential side. If you go commercial, there's over a $4 million savings, and if you go industrial, which is ADM, it would be $12.6 million savings for them, which totals to $20 million, a little under $21 million. And you add the money that payment in lieu of taxes, and we've got $21,600,000 a year that we're saving and bringing value back to our customers and to our citizens here in Marshall. It's a great thing that we're doing here, and very, very proud to be a part of such a great organization and great people that work hard every day to keep your lights on and the water flowing. It's a great value to our citizens. Any other questions?
Thank you, Dave. We'll open it up for any questions. John, do you have anything you want to add as liaison to MMU? Any questions the council has? Thank you, Dave. I would entertain a motion to accept the agreement.
So moved.
Motion by Amanda, seconded by John. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. We'll close the voting. And the motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. Looking forward to working with you another year.
We'll move to agenda item number 12, the 2025 health, dental, and vision insurance renewals. The council did have a work session reviewing this in detail, but I will ask Sheila Dubbs, our Human Resources Director, to present this information.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. For your consideration tonight, we have the renewals, as the Mayor said, for medical, dental, and vision insurances. 2 weeks ago, Bill Chakosky, our broker, came and reviewed the information in detail with the council for our 2025 renewals. Bill was able to negotiate our initial medical renewal down to a 15% increase. However, we are not recommending acceptance of that proposal. Bill was able to obtain an alternate proposal from Blue Cross and Blue Shield that has a lower premium increase, and that's a 10% increase. Our recommendation is to accept that proposal. Bill did follow up with me. Councilmember Meister asked a question at the work session about employee participation in the wellness program. Our participation is at 60% for that wellness program. 60. Yep. For the dental renewal, we are entering our second year with Beam Dental in that agreement, which we do have a rate guarantee for, so our rates will stay the same for 2025. We are recommending renewal with Beam Dental. The vision renewal proposal, thank you, Stephen. IMED is offering renewal for 4 years with no rate increases, and employees have been satisfied with the coverage, the discounts, and the provider network with that. This particular benefit, the vision, is a voluntary benefit, meaning that an employee who elects that pays for all of the premium. Staff are also recommending renewal with IMED. In early October, staff did meet with the Employee Insurance Advisory Committee, which includes representatives from each union as well as non-union employees. We reviewed all 3 of these benefit proposals with them and obtained their feedback. The committee is supportive of the recommendations being brought for you today. So with that, I'll stop and you can ask any questions you have.
Okay, thank you, Sheila. Questions? Again, the council did go through this in detail at a work session 2 weeks ago. If there are no questions, I'd entertain a motion to approve dental health and vision.
I'll make a
in health.
motion.
Second.
Motion by C, seconded by John. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. We'll close the voting. And the motion does pass. We'll move then to agenda item number 13, consider the request of Matt Schnorr for a conditional use permit for a duplex in an R1 district. With us tonight is Ilya Gutman to present this. Ilya?
Thank you, Mayor Council. So this is a request for a duplex in the single-family low-density residential districts. By ordinance, they are conditional use, and that's why a conditional use permit is required. This is existing building. It was built in '75 as a single family, and at some point there was a request for a conditional use permit for a duplex there, but it was denied. So it came up now with the residential registration program. So I had to look at everything, and I discovered that thing. It was denied for several reasons at that time, and actually all reasons of that are either gone or will be gone. One of the reasons was, for example, that the windows were not good enough, and they have all been replaced recently. The other one was that there was an exit from the lower apartment was through the garage, and one of the condition attached to this conditional use permit is that that would be fixed and the separation will be provided. So otherwise, you can see that all the criteria in the ordinance which are required for granting conditional use permit are met, and so the recommendation is to approve this conditional use permit.
Okay, thank you, Ilya. This was presented to the Planning Commission, and Amanda is liaison to the Planning Commission.
Yeah.
Anything you want to add?
No, there wasn't really any concerns. There were a couple people from the neighborhood, but they weren't even too concerned, just property value they wondered,
Yeah.
but not about the actual rental, and it was a good meeting, good discussion.
Good. Any questions? If not, you have the recommendation. Is there a motion?
I'd make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
By Amanda, seconded by Craig. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. Close the voting. And the motion does pass. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ilya.
We'll move then to agenda item number 14. This is the ordinance 2, Article 8, the licensing and registration requirements for the sale of intoxicating cannabinoid products. Pam Whitmore, City Attorney, I'll turn to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. So we've been preparing the council for seeing this. It is with respect to the city registration for higher level cannabinoid products. It builds on our existing registration system for our lower potency hemp edible products. You'll notice in there, as you reviewed the ordinance, there's a lot of new definitions, which makes it quite lengthy. But those are necessary for purposes of understanding that this is just for retailers and what types of products. So what this ordinance does is creates additional registration for cannabis retailers. And retailers can include regular retailers, meso business, and micro businesses, which are plant to sale type businesses. And just to note that the micro businesses can have a cannabis lounge for on-site consumption. So that is all under state statute. With respect to that, this in front of you is a limitation of 2 registrations for businesses who are selling that higher level cannabis retail products. There's additional information incorporating in the system for if there's any type of violations that are involved in after the Office of Cannabis Management gets an application and sends it to the local jurisdiction for us to confirm that it complies with our local ordinances, with our zoning, and with the fire and building code. There have been a couple of updates that are non-substantive, so to speak. Since the packet was originally released, there was some missing blanks. So just so the council's aware, the hours that were set are 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. The statute didn't address the hours, and so that was left to staff and had not been initially included. So based on the recommendations of the Public Health Center, we set the hours for 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. 7 days a week. For all of those retail sales, since we do allow on-site intoxicating lower level retail sales, basically the serving of beverages at on-site liquor license, we've made those hours to coincide with the establishment where they're being served. In addition to that, if there's a notification of a violation, there was a blank as far as how many days the city would be notifying OCM. We put 7 in there. And because of that, since the OCM has 7 days then to get back to us and 30 days to investigate, we increased the length of suspension that we can have on our registrations until we hear from the OCM up to 60 calendar days. So those are the only additional things I wanted to note that were in the ordinance that the council might not have seen before the meeting this evening. And with that, that's an overview. I'm open for any questions, if anybody has any questions.
Any input from the Legislative and Ordinance Committee? Thank you, Pam.
No,
Yeah.
we spent a lot of time on that and on this, and again, we're kind of behooving to the state for most of it, and we thought about it, and this is where we came up with.
Building on Steve's comments, and for the general public that might be watching, Pam made a couple of points. One is a limit of 2 licenses. State statute requires a minimum of applications be accepted or licensed for retail operators based on 1 per every 12,500 population. Since our population is 13,906, that means 2 is our minimum. And the other point to make is the application and licensing really is controlled at the state level, as you have said. The registration process and the local control in terms of zoning, that resides with the city. So, any other input?
The only other thing, Mr. Mayor, on page 133, if you look at artificially derived cannabinoid, the second sentence, there's a misspelling. It says hemp plat parts. It's a hemp plant.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Wow.
Any other input? Again, this is one of those things that it's necessary that we do. We really don't have a choice, so I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Steve, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by John, discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote.
Mr. Mayor, Council, I assume those motions include the additional information that I provided and the typo that would be corrected.
Yes.
That is
Thank you.
correct, and that's correct with your second. With that, we will close the voting. And the motion does pass. We'll move then to agenda item number 15. This is the 2025 MnDOT College Drive Improvement Project. We have a resolution that would order the preparation of the report on the improvement, as well as the resolution that would receive the feasibility report and call for a hearing on the improvement. Jason Anderson, City Engineer, Director of Public Works.
Thank you, Mayor. As you indicated, you have two resolutions before you for this project. The purpose of these resolutions, we're all well aware of the project and our cooperation with MnDOT, but if we are going to special assess any of the costs, then we need to take some of these steps. So that's what we're starting tonight. MnDOT's covering most of the costs on this project that we would typically special assess. Costs that remain that we have the option to special assess are sanitary sewer service lines and parking lane costs along the corridor. At committee, PAT committee, we did discuss these things, and it was determined that we should only look to assess sanitary sewer service lines. The parking lane costs that we're responsible for on this project are very small. I think they're estimated around $2,000 in our Schedule I that we'll get to look at next. So therefore, staff would recommend both resolutions be approved to both order the report and then also receive the feasibility report and schedule a public hearing for our next council meeting on November 12th. We are estimating assessed costs at $150,000 at this time, but I think by the next meeting I should have a more specific estimate.
Thank you, Jason. Any input from the Public Improvement Transportation Committee?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think one important thing that Jason touched on it is that when we looked at it, because of kind of the uniqueness of how far it is into where sanitary sewer runs and that it may or may not be in the center of the street, that it's a maximum that will be equal to whichever side you're on. So there might be, one line might be 70 feet and the other line 30 feet, but properties on opposite sides of the street, they're going to be billed equally for the service, and we'll have to ad valorem or have, we'll figure out the rest of the cost, but people aren't going to be considered differently just because, they're on one side of the project or the other. It'll be fair and equitable.
Thank you, Craig. Any questions? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
So move.
Second.
By Craig, seconded by John. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. We'll close the voting. The motion does pass. We'll move then to agenda item number 16, also the 2025, backing up, was your motion for the first resolution or for both resolutions?
Well, it was for everything on 15, so now we're coming up on, mine was for both items on item 15.
Both resolutions.
Both resolutions. Consider the resolution ordering the preparation of the report and also the resolution receiving feasibility report and calling for the hearing on improvement.
And that's okay with your needs?
That's acceptable for me. We do have it broken out in our memo as two recommendations, but I think with that motion to approve both, that works from my perspective.
Okay, so with that clarification, thank you. We'll move then to the agenda item number 16, the 2025 MnDOT College Drive Improvement Project. We have before us would be the resolution authorizing the execution of the MnDOT Cooperative Construction Agreement. Once again, Jason.
Thank you, Mayor. This is included in the packet is the cooperative agreement between the city and MnDOT for next year's College Drive reconstruction project. The agreement outlines our relationship, who's responsible for what, as well as ongoing maintenance, not just project costs, but ongoing responsibilities. Couple notable items that we should probably highlight. The federal grant funds that we have identified in this project from MnDOT. Some of the funds are from MnDOT through their RAISE grant. Some of them are from a grant that we received through the MnDOT ATP. They are identified with a cap in the agreement, so it is possible that if costs come in higher than estimated, that we could be pushing that cap and have a higher than noted local cost share. Now, it's likely that MnDOT would likely work with us on that and try not to put us in a bad spot. But I just wanted to highlight that there is a cap, if you look through the Schedule I, on most of the federal dollars. You'll note on the first sheet here, the total city obligation at $8.187 million, with just under $3 million in anticipated federal aid, and then the $5.2 million of non-federal aid dollars. A large portion of the local non-federal aid dollars is city and water and wastewater costs, as well as some electric costs.
So when Dave Shelkoff was referencing the $2.5 million, that's included in this total?
That is correct, yeah.
But that's only the water side, correct? Water and electric, and then there's stormwater and wastewater.
Correct. We haven't, we've been working with the cost estimates, and up until recently, we haven't had very good numbers, so we don't have a completely solid breakdown, but you're right, there's a surface water participation, water, wastewater, electric, and then probably a little bit of municipal state aid that we'll have to put into the pot, but we're working on breaking that out. But I just wanted to point out that out of that 5.2 million, it's probably 4.8 or 9 million of that is water and sewer costs. So really appreciative of the relationship we've had with MnDOT as we've gone down the path on this project. They've really stepped up to try to help us out with identifying some federal raised dollars for us to allocate towards this project to help cover local highway costs, things like traffic signal, local legs, the roundabout local legs that we would otherwise have to pay for. MnDOT really stepped up and put grant dollars forward where we didn't already have them procured. So it's been good that way. I'll also note that city staff, the engineering staff, will be performing construction administration on the water and sewer installation, so that saves some costs. We'll do that with our team instead of paying for MnDOT to administer those portions of the contract. I've outlined some other items worth noting, but I don't think we need to go through them one by one. If you have questions on anything, either in the agreement or in the memo, we can try to discuss it. I would recommend that we approve the agreement. This is the first step to moving down the path of bidding the project. They want to receive bids on December 6th, and ideally this is executed before they start advertising.
Thank you, Jason. Questions?
Just a comment, Mr. Mayor. I just kind of maybe a look back over the last 3 years on big projects that the city has done, primarily the Addison parking lot, the Third and Lion project, and also the Lion Street East project by Block 11 from First Street to College Drive. These were all pushed forward, and we were on a tight timeline, and, you know, we worked hard to get those. So the city had bit off a pretty big chunk, but as Jason and his engineering department kept reminding us on the PI&T and on city council, is that all of our elevations and grades for this project that MnDOT's doing now are critical, in that all of our underground utilities, that when we do these street projects, we go in and upgrade everything that's below the street and in the boulevard. And we had to have all of our things lined up to fit into this project because MnDOT wasn't going to back up. And so if we wanted to control our fate, we had to have our things done prior. So I appreciate all of our residents and business people's patience as we push through those projects, but we're in a good shape now going into this College Drive project because our staff and our contractors have got all of our work done. So it'll make this a lot smoother, and I think we're going to have another nice product. So just want to give my hats off to Jason and Eric and the city staff that have worked hard to make that happen.
Good. And just for the perspective of the scope and size of this project, this, I believe, you correct me if I'm wrong on this, but this is expected to be the largest single contract that MnDOT has had for any project in the district ever.
I'd like to correct you. I'm not sure on that. That sounds right to me. It's a very large project. It's probably pushing $30 million in total contract at estimate right now. So
I am right on this.
Yeah. Okay. I figured you were. Yeah.
Okay. Other questions? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
Make motion.
Motion by C.
Second.
Seconded by Craig. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. I will close the voting. And the motion passes. Agenda item number 17, consider the approval of the legislative service agreement with Flaherty and Hood for 2025 and 2026. I'll call on City Administrator Sharon Hansen. Sharon?
Mr. Mayor and Council, the mayor and city leadership met with Marty Seifert from Flaherty and Hood on September 9th to discuss potential legislative funding for a variety of capital projects. They varied from wastewater to airport to park facilities and also public safety. We didn't have a price tag on all of it, but it exceeded needs within the city exceeded 50 million when you looked at all the totality of future potential capital projects. The city has utilized Flaherty and Hood for past legislative services. Most recently in 2023, we contracted with Flaherty and Hood to assist us with sales tax legislation for the Marshall Aquatic Center. For 25 and 26, it would be a total cost of $50,000, essentially $25,000 per year. This would lock us into a 2-year agreement. For 2025, we have identified 2 specific areas, one being the Merit Center, which did receive appropriation through the capital bond process for the gun range enhancement, which is phase 2 of the Merit Center project. It's about $2.2 million. There was some legislative language that curtailed the actual spending of those dollars. So Flaherty and Hood will assist us with some legislative language corrections to that. In addition, phase 3, which is a fire department burn prop, which is approximately $3.5 million, is something that the city would like to pursue in 2025. And finally, another project that's been discussed, I think, more recently with the city council is funding for the band shell. And we're looking at potentially cooperating with our local legislators on the Arts Cultural Heritage Fund, which is called the Legacy Fund. Most people call it that. And we're still kind of working through some numbers on that. We know that we did get a cost estimate when we applied for a DNR grant that we did not receive. And the estimate was close to $1 million, which is quite shocking. But as we've seen with the Marshall Aquatic Center and some other facilities, it's probably where we need to be at, unfortunately. So those are some initial discussions we've had with Flaherty and Hood. We feel really good, obviously, and I know the mayor has stated this. Without Flaherty and Hood, we probably wouldn't even be talking about our challenges with the Marshall Aquatic Center to get the referendum to occur in 23 when it did. It wouldn't have occurred without Flaherty and Hood. So we do have this budgeted in our 2025 budget. We will anticipate when we start 2026 budget as well to also incorporate it in that. And staff recommends approval of this agreement.
Thank you, Sharon. I would also add that Flaherty and Hood, and specifically Marty Seifert, is also valuable in just their awareness of other opportunities or things that we ought to be working on. So while Sharon outlined, 2 or 3 specific things that we absolutely want him to work on, there are other things that are unforeseen that will come up during the legislative session. And unless you're there all the time, as they are, we would miss it. So, questions?
I move approval of the agreement with Flaherty and Hood for 2025 and 2026.
Motion by, did you second? No. Motion by Craig, seconded by John. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting. And the motion does pass. We'll move then to agenda item number 18, Commission Board Liaison Report. Craig?
I have nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Steve?
EDA met, they had a bus tour today. There was a lot of people who went. I had committee meetings all day, so I was unable to go. So I'll defer to somebody who went.
I didn't get to go either, unfortunately, but luckily we get to talk about it a lot in EDA. Just to elaborate more, talk more about EDA, our daycare and working towards strategies and what we want to do next. It just keeps moving forward, which is really good. Nothing's set in stone yet, but Lauren's working hard.
Okay, from my committees, Southwest Regional Development Commission met this past Thursday, really solidified their legislative intent or needs, and they do align pretty well with what our needs are. Specifically, daycare is an issue that is not only City of Marshall, not only in Lyon County, but really the entire region. So the Fire Relief Association Board of Trustees met this morning. They reviewed this is their quarterly meeting, their performance on their fund so far this year has been at 13.6%, so the fund's is in good shape. And then the EDA bus tour, I was on 2 of them today, so and was able to assist Lauren in the narrative as we went along. Lauren did a great job both in organizing and in presenting all of the things that are going on in the city right now. John?
Nothing.
C.
So when is Marshall's opening? That's the most important question.
April, she said.
April? Ooh,
Yes.
that's exciting. Okay. I missed the library board meeting because of the open house at the ELC and the ALC building.
Okay, very good. We'll move then to council member individual item C.
So I have been participating in the child care supply study that Lauren has been facilitating with, is it Child First? Do you know for sure?
Children's First Finance, I think.
Yep,
is what
Children's
they're
First
named.
Finance, yep. So we've been working with them and we've been divided among different leaders around Marshall here to try to figure out solution of childcare.
Okay, John?
Attended the Taste of Marshall a couple weeks ago, and it was very well attended and a great event. Just want to give my hats off to that.
Greg?
Was actually able to stand in for the mayor when Brout Brothers opened up and started canning the feature brews, and that was just prior to the SMSU homecoming, so we got to watch them can the Mustang Pale Ale, which was delicious, by the way, at 9 o'clock in the morning coming off the cold line. Not too bad, and luckily my picture didn't make it in the paper, I don't think, actually consuming. I may have been displaying the can, and it may or may not have been full, but it was good.
The jail roster later.
Well, it kind of reminded me of an old song I heard Johnny Cash sing about something about breakfast, and it wasn't bad, so he'll have dessert.
Yeah. Well, I regret not being there, so.
Well, I appreciate you missing that one. It was good.
Well, and anything else, Craig?
No, that's it. Thank you.
I have nothing.
Amanda?
I don't have anything either.
Our next meeting is November 12th. I have a work commitment to northern Minnesota, so I will be absent from that meeting. So Craig, as President Pro Tem, if you're available, you'll be running that meeting.
And Stephen will have my special devices up for me to use as I lead the council through that meeting.
Well, I trust everything will go okay.
Oh, I'm sure it will.
Okay.
We have good help.
We'll move then to staff reports. Sharon?
Yeah, just 3 really quick things. First of all, I want to give credit to the EDA board too, just to kind of promote the bus tours, because there was a little reluctance from Lauren to maybe, should we do this again? And I know the EDA board felt really strongly, and so you pushed us to kind of do this. And as you both stated, the mayor and the both representatives, is that it was actually really well attended and appreciated. So I appreciate you pushing staff on that particular topic. I'm actually going to turn it over to a couple staff people to give a little plug for some of their work recently, if it's okay, Mr. Mayor. And I know that Stephen Anderson wanted to talk a little bit about the upcoming election and voting, and then also our liquor store management, which includes AJ Bolberg and Eric Luther, want to talk a little bit more about the special brews. So I will, if you don't mind, I could turn it over to Stephen Anderson for a short election update.
Had to talk a lot today. So absentee voting or early voting is currently ongoing at the Lyon County Courthouse. So if anyone is interested, you can actually put a ballot directly into the machine up until Election Day. If you are a mail ballot precinct, you could still do it on Election Day as well. So in Marshall, we will be having the election at the 3 normal polling locations. So Ward 1 will be at the arena, Ward 2 will be at the middle school, and then Ward 3 will be at the YMCA. Polls will be opening at 7 a.m. and they will close at 8 p.m. So if you have not voted yet, please go out and vote early or show up on November 5th.
Thank you, Stephen. Any questions about elections? Thank you. Then I'll call on E.J. Moberg and Eric Luther. We're really glad that you're here.
Ooh, they've got posters,
Oh, look at this.
props.
Like it.
Perfect.
I'll just do a quick little minute here on this, but I don't have any graphs or any printed materials, but I do have samples. So if you're interested in taking one tonight, take a can, take all 4 of them or whatever. But this is our exclusive beers that we've been working on since probably about January, February this past year. And we have 3 Tallgrass branded beers. One is called Brew 1872, which is a nod to the establishment of Marshall and the year it was established. That's an amber ale. We have Cultivate, which we've had before in the bigger cans, the Crowlers, and that's a pale ale, which kind of celebrates our tagline of Marshall, cultivating the best of us. And then we have Jiminy Jumper Juicy Light Apple Ale, which is a Old 56 flavored apple ale, kind of a nod to our mascot, Jiminy Jumper, which is our grasshopper there. And then the last one we introduced is called Mustang Golden Ale, which is the official beer of Mustang Athletics and at the university. So all those are available starting today, which is a good thing. So come on out, grab one. They're very good. We had some canning this morning on our last Jiminy Jumper Juicy Apple. And if you want to watch that. All right, so that's our story, and we're going to be promoting this here starting today, and we're going to hit it hard here for the next couple of weeks, a couple of months here. So, and we hope that we can continue to enjoy locally, drink locally, and have kind of a celebration of our things that we have in Marshall with our beers.
Well, thank you, Eric, and thank you, EJ. Maybe we want to talk just a little bit about first off, this is a wonderful collaboration between SMSU, the City of Marshall, Tallgrass Liquor, and Brow Brothers. So and very impressive the technology they have in place to do this canning and do it. You know, I think you witnessed it, I witnessed it one day, and it's very impressive. On the Brew 1872, that is, the artwork on there is one of the original railroad depots that was on the Chicago Northwestern line. It's no longer here, but it's very impressive artwork. And I think Lauren Deitz was very helpful and instrumental in doing some of the design for the artwork, at least on the jumper, the 1872, and the Cultivate, and I think the SMSU graphics people were involved in the
Development of
Southwest.
that, yep. Yeah, hats off to Lauren. She really did a nice job with basically starting from ground zero, meaning we had some ideas and then we kind of formulated things to kind of see what would work and what would not work, what's copyrighted, what it wasn't copyrighted. So we needed to kind of pivot on a couple of times, but we eventually got it figured out.
Any other input or questions for either EJ or Eric? If not,
So-
thank you.
Yep, get ready to enjoy. There's a few samples here at the end of the meeting here, so you can take one home and see what you think.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As we turn to Jason for your report, that puts extra pressure on you to not really drag it out too long here.
I'll be really brief. Just excited to say that our construction is largely substantially complete for the year, so really happy for that. Whitney Street is now open this week and pretty much done. Our cooperative project with United Community Action Partnership Transit is also substantially completed with the bus stops around a few different locations. So everything's looking good, and we're happy to move into winter in the next phase.
Thank you. Any questions for Jason? Pam, I'll turn to you.
Nothing for me, Mr. Mayor, thanks.
We'll move on with the remainder of the agenda this evening, which includes the listing of building permits, our listing of cash and investments, and our minutes from the October Planning Commission, and our listing of upcoming meetings. Is there anything else to come forward at this meeting this evening? If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion by Steve, seconded by Amanda to adjourn. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting. The motion passes. We are adjourned.